Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us some family here.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
With the right white man, we can do anything.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
You know what this bootleg trophy tells me? Tells me the only thing I need to know. You have initiative and you can read.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
Crack an egg on it. Caca!
And Billy Das, the indie dork.
It's Jurassic Park. It's a massive park. What could possibly go wrong?
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the disco dork. You're pointing at me right now. Look at you. Look at what you did there. Look at your finger right now. And welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. It is the Dorkies 2018.
It's not another edition. It's the edition.
The edition. Our...
I'll stop.
It's okay. It is our part one of our end of the year episode where we recap our favorite films of 2018.
Dude, I can't believe the year's over.
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad.
Yeah, kind of.
Sort of. Well, you know, at the very least, cinematically, 2018 has been a phenomenal year. That's my thought on the matter.
That's my thought on the matter for sure.
Yeah, it has been.
What's so fascinating is, and we've talked about this, I think we talked about it on the Not Top 10 a little bit, but at the midway point, you know, Brad was all like, 2018 is not as good as previous years.
Yeah.
And then now looking back at it, looking at my top 25, I go, oh, this might be a really great year at the movies, not just a good year. So quit being such a pessimist.
Yeah.
I think it's a great year, especially if you look back. I mean, I think there's a lot to kind of grab as far as like some of the themes that we've seen in cinema this year. Like two of the things that I kind of noticed was first-time directors. When you look at people like Bo Burnham with 8th Grade, when you look at Ari Aster for Hereditary. Of course, we talk a lot about Boots Riley. And the gentleman that also directed Blind Spotting. It was his first time directing. So there's a lot of people that came out the gate this year with some really profound films. And then also we talk about just black cinema, the quality of black cinema in this year. It's kind of been a watershed moment with starting off with like movies like Black Panther and then having stuff like Sorry to Bother You and Blind Spotting and Black Klansman and then the leads like having Miles Morales and Creed 2 and Widows, and it's just been a phenomenal year on that front. I just found it to be I think this is one that's going to go down in history.
And just to give credit where credit's due, the director of Blind Spotting was Carlos Lopez Estrada.
That's right, yeah.
What about you, Billy, as far as the indie films? Were you satisfied with the output?
I could not be happier with the indie films that came out this year. I think the crop of, like Brian said, like the crop of first-time directors especially who've come out through independent films. I mean, every one of those films that you listed is an independent film, and I could not be happier with the turnout for this year. But like I also think that a lot of filmmakers came out with a lot to say this year. Like, it's been a very angry year.
Well, yeah, because have you looked outside, Billy?
It's an angry time. It is an angry time. Like, 2017 was a really angry year, and I think a lot of people were taken aback by that. And I think that you saw a lot of those themes start to shake out in 2018 with the projects that got put in place. And I'm extremely grateful for the stories that we've seen this year.
What about you, Wifter? Were you surprised at all by what we got from the theaters and VOD or whatever, just from cinema in general for this year?
I found myself getting on board and finding myself being a fan of people. Like with Sorry to Bother You. I'm going to watch anything Boots Riley makes. It's his first film, and I'm like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I also, you were talking about how angry this year has been, and I appreciate, when you hear my list, a lot of the themes and political stuff is going to bubble up. But there's also been the films, particularly for children, where I find the message being so beautiful and so necessary. Think about Paddington 2, how about let's just try to be kind and polite and treat each other with respect, and things are going to be okay. Or
You think Trump's watched Paddington 2?
No. I wouldn't let him, frankly.
He probably needs to. Just imagine him watching that movie and it being a transformative experience for him. He's like, oh, fuck, I've been doing it all wrong. Like, It's a Wonderful Life.
I don't think it would go that way.
That bear deserves to be on the other side of the wall.
God damn.
Because he's from Peru.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. All right, well, before we get into our top 10, hopefully you've listened to our not top 10, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not listened to those 2 episodes, they're part 1 and part 2, because like this one, that episode is an epic, and we had to split it down the middle. Go back and give those a listen. It'll give you a hint maybe as to what could potentially possibly be on our top 10. Before we get into our picks, we have a bunch of responses from some listeners. So what we're going to do is, in between each round, I'll shoot off one from our listeners. I want to start with Aaron Crownover, if I'm saying that right. And I quote, "Can you ever forgive me?" This is the Melissa McCarthy film. This is based on a true story. If I'm not mistaken, right? And this is what he says: "It's a Melissa McCarthy movie where she doesn't play the same one-dimensional character she has always done. The movie is quirky and fun and has some heart." I remember seeing the trailer. Shame on me for not actually taking the time to watch the film. But Aaron's sentiment right there is the main thing I took away from the trailer. I appreciate, and I said this when I actually spoke about the trailer on one of the episodes. I enjoy seeing her take a role where it's not focused on comedy at the expense of her size, and she gets to put character first and foremost. Granted, I love her in Spy. Really, I love Jason Statham in Spy.
So good.
How could you not?
But I can appreciate her taking a role like this, and I will make it a priority to check this movie out.
Same. Right now in DC, the only place you can check it out at is the E Street Cinema and the Bethesda Row Cinema.
Okay.
Which is a bit of a hike for myself.
Yeah.
But I'm really disappointed. It's another big blind spot, so keep that in mind with my dorkies.
Yeah. So thanks, Aaron, for that. So now, with that out of the way, all right, B, you got to start things off as always. You ready?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Your number 10. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to divide this up 10 through 6, and then part 2 will be 5 through 1. So Turtle Dork, number 10.
So before I get to my number 10, if you guys would indulge me for just a second,
This episode's going to be 12 hours.
I know, right? But I do want to say that because of that last minute bump that I had this morning to my list.
Your list has been changing today.
It's been changing. So my number 10 that I thought I was going to talk about got bumped to number 11. So I do want to mention that film real quick.
This is the bump.
Yeah. So the film that was formerly known as number 10 was Creed 2.
Damn! Whoa! That's how you know this has been a great year.
Right?
That Creed 2 is Brian's 11.
Yeah. So yeah, Creed. I mean, look, I love those characters. I've talked about it before. I didn't expect that film to rival the first film as much as I loved that first film. Ryan Coogler, everything. But I loved first I love coming back to those characters, and I like what they were able to do with the Dragos. On paper, that seemed like it could have been a misstep, but they handled that perfectly. So I don't want to talk about it too much, but it is my number 11.
All right.
Cheating again.
I know.
How dare you? How dare you bring up another movie from your number 11 spot based on a late-seated change? See me later.
So my number 10 we talked about earlier, and because Billy watched it last night and I was able to watch it this morning, and it is a 2018 release. My number 10 is One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Same.
Nice. Yeah. So this is a movie that hasn't been seen by a lot of people, so I'm not going to spoil the movie, but I will give you kind of the setup of the film. Basically, it's these group of people that are trying to make a film at this like factory warehouse, and it's basically supposed to take place on some land where there's been like some evil things or some
sickness.
A curse.
Yeah, a curse or some sickness that has happened before. And while they were making their movie, there is an outbreak and a zombie attack, and that's all I'll say. And so I don't want to spoil too much, but this movie is phenomenal. Like I said, you have to. I'll go in it with the same thing that you said watching it at Fantastic Fest. Get through the first 30 minutes, 37, 38 minutes, and then the movie takes a switch, and that switch is probably some of the most delightful filmmaking you will ever see on screen. It is
a true celebration of movies.
It's a celebration.
straight.
It's a celebration of movies. It's a celebration of filmmaking, and that's all I'll say.
Well, it didn't make my top 10, Brian, but it did make my 25.
It did.
And if it had dropped during our not top 10, it would have been on my not top 10.
Nice. Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah, and rewatching it again this morning, I kind of had that same gleeful smile that I had watching it at Fantastic Fest. And so, because I didn't think the movie was still going to work in the same way, but it does. And I think it's because of my history with film and filmmaking that I just absolutely love this movie. It's brilliant. So that's my number 10.
All right, wife dork.
Yes.
Your number 10.
My number 10 got added to my dorkies thanks to Brian, because when I was initially putting my list together, not that I had forgotten this movie, but when you're listing off every single movie you've seen in a year and you haven't been keeping up with your letterbox because you're a terrible person,
Yep.
who's horrible at social media.
Yep.
My number 10 is Support the Girls.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's a good pick.
It's a great movie.
I did retail jobs from the time I was 16 up through the time, when me and Brad met, when I was like 24 or 25.
We met in retail together.
Yeah, we did.
Almost 10 years.
And Brad shat where he ate.
Oh.
And as a manager, started dating me.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
Oh.
But this movie is about the manager, Lisa, played by Regina Hall brilliantly, trying to run Double Whammies, which is like a Hooters sports bar type place, according to her own ideologies, and how that ends up bumping up against this corporate mindset of, well, we've got to hit these numbers and things have to be for profit and we have to protect ourselves from legal action and blah, blah, blah. She takes this place that on the surface would seem predatory. The fact that people are like, I want to eat some wings. I want to watch some sports. I want to see some titties.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, where this could potentially be for an all-female waitstaff, a hostile environment.
Yeah.
But Lisa really wanted to make it a home and prioritized her staff. When somebody needed childcare, she could bring her child to work. If somebody was in a financial bind, they would find a way to help that person. And then there's like a corporate Double Whammies other titty bar.
Man cave.
Yeah, that's right. Man
yeah,
cave
yeah.
opening up and putting this pressure on this smaller independent bar, and they find themselves just not being able to stay afloat. And I think that and it's just kind of a day in the life kind of movie where you get to see how Lisa starts her day and how she has to be to her boss and how she is to the girls. And I think what typifies this character to me is she had a bunch of like heart stickers, and she was going through the back rooms and just, putting up the heart stickers, going like, who's not going to see this and have their day brightened? And then when the manager comes, he goes through and he peels off those stickers.
Yeah. That moment, so brutal.
So brutal.
As a former retail manager who swept in there and stole your heart, that was a brutal moment.
I just found this movie to be a very emotional and cathartic experience. By the end of the movie, Regina Hall and two of the other waitresses, Haley Lou Richardson, who plays Macy, and Shayna McHale, who plays Danielle, they keep that family unit, at least for the time being, together as their situation and their life changes, and they can relate to each other in a way that nobody else can because they've been through this horrific retail experience together. So if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. It's my number 10.
Great film.
All right, B, your number 10.
I watched a lot of movies this year.
Yep.
And, we were talking about it before we hit record. Every movie on my list was in a different position 24 hours ago. Everything has shifted except for actually one movie. And I'll let you know when we get to it.
Okay.
But now, I feel really confident. So I feel like this 10 is truly Brad's 10. This represents my favorite movies. Not necessarily the best movies of the year, but Brad's favorite movies. Okay. That asterisk is done.
Mine actually are the best movies of the year, so everybody keep that in mind when you're listening to my top 10.
Lisa's
They
very
are the
objective.
legitimized best.
Yours and Dave Ehrlich's.
Number 10 is a film that we talked about in our not top 10. It is Ari Aster's Hereditary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easily the scariest movie that I saw this year. And which, Lisa talked about it in her top 10 and how the first half of that movie, or maybe 30 minutes, I'm not even sure how long it takes, and I'm not going to spoil it here, but the first half of that movie is so incredibly real and just gut-wrenching and uncomfortable to watch, that when the supernatural element occurs, there is a relief. That being said, with that relief are some of the scariest damn images I've seen in a movie. Yeah. And, there's been some backlash towards the film. Some people have not responded as positively towards the ending and what the ultimate threat is, being maybe a little old school or relating to films that are bona fide classics / masterpieces. But I think what Aster does so well is how he introduces those elements and how ultimately he handles this supernatural threat that we've seen explored from everything from, well, I'm not even going to say because I just don't want to spoil it. It's been out for a while, but some people haven't checked it out. Just go watch it. A lot of movies have done this type of stuff in the past, but I think the mechanics of the film are phenomenal, and Lisa's talking about following Boots Riley towards every movie he does from this point forward. I'm the same way with Ari Aster. It's a phenomenal explanation. Not an explanation. It's his craft is phenomenal. Let's just go with that, Brad. Don't get hung up on all the words. His craft is phenomenal.
It is.
And impressive. And I'm in love with Ari Aster. And oh my God, Toni Collette, whoa.
Yeah.
She's had a great year.
Yeah.
I love, Regina King in If Beale Street Could Talk. I love Lisa from Support the Girls,
Regina Hall.
the
They're
two
both named
Reginas.
Regina.
I love both Reginas,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But my favorite female performance of the year, Olivia Colman's also really great in favorite. Shut up, Brad. My favorite female performance of the year is Toni Collette. This episode is going to be 7 hours long.
It's okay. It's all right.
I'm excited, guys. Hereditary's great.
It is.
They're like the set design, the production design, all of the art design that went into just the stuff that's background in that movie, especially her model work through the course of the film. Like everything about it's impeccable. It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Billy, your number 10.
All right. So as I was saying, Brian, you took up so much time talking about things that got bumped off your list. That's completely unacceptable. But I also saw One Cut of the Dead last night. Okay. I saw that on like midnight on Twitter, just a random tweet. Somebody said it was out on Prime.
I think it was Ryan at the Chew Defense. We gotta give him the credit.
It was Ryan. It was Ryan for sure. And I immediately watched One Cut of the Dead, and it immediately went onto my top 10 list. So I just want to say that the number 10 slot prior to early the wee hours of this morning was Anna and the Apocalypse, which I had a lot of fun with for a lot of different reasons. I hope that we'll have a chance to talk about it later.
Maybe.
But I'm a sucker for zombie movies. I recognize that they're kind of played out in a lot of senses and that there's a lot of repetitive work going on right now. But anytime somebody can do something original with the genre, I'm there for it. And to be perfectly honest, if it's not original, I'm willing to go check it out and sit through it. So, the caveat for One Cut of the Dead was hang out for the first 37 minutes of that film. I'm watching this movie going, I don't see what the big issue is. This is great. These are some people out having a wonderful time doing the best that they can to put together a one-cut zombie film and all the effects that go into it. I'm thinking, man, how do they do this? And honestly, my overriding thought through the course of it was like, how big is their fucking memory card? Because it's a 37-minute take. Like, how does that work for them just to put that together? So anyways,
it can be done. It can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah,
it can be done. Yeah. And but no, I think that the One Cut of the Dead it's just great. It's a joyful movie. It is a ton of fun to watch, and it gives you just enough time with the One Cut of the Dead. It gives you just enough time with the other segments of the film to appreciate where it's going to go. And I think it is a genuinely perfect movie. So find it if you can. If it's a mistake that Amazon put it out there, if it's still out right now, jump on that shit immediately and watch it. If it is just out, go look at it. This is a must-see film for the year.
All right. My number 10 was... So my list changed as well, but my list only changed in that things moved around. Nothing was added or taken away. So it is a film that I saw at Fantastic Fest, and it's probably going to be a point of controversy because theatrically it comes out February next year, 2019.
Oh no, Brad's head just exploded.
No,
there's brains everywhere.
Darren has his method. I have my method, along with the Academy of Motion Pictures. Darren can do what he wants.
Yeah, and it's Donnybrook. And the reason why is, and we've talked about this movie before, so because this is going to be, to keep it from being a 13-hour episode, I'm just going to keep it short and refer you back to our other episodes where I spoke about it, whether it be our Fantastic Fest review cast. But it's a movie, the long story short is that I still think about the film. And that's why it's on my list. If I see a movie in a time where, like Brad, I watch a lot of movies. I may not watch as many as Brad, but I watch a lot of films. And for a film to stick with me, even through festival fog, means that at some point, somewhere, it struck a nerve. And so I have to credit the film, any film, for doing that. And that's basically the reason why it's on my list. I look forward to seeing it again to reevaluate it because I haven't seen, unlike some other films from the festival, I have had an opportunity to go back and rewatch. I've not been able to go back and rewatch Donnybrook. And I'm very curious to do so to see if my thoughts post the festival, post conversations about the film will change my perception of the film, actually. But until that happens, it is something that I continue to think about. So it is the number 10 on my list.
I really love that movie, and I'm sure it'll be in my top 25 in 2019.
Since there were two movies that you guys came out of Fantastic Fest having seen and talked to me about, and both of them Darren recommended to me. Donnybrook is on my most anticipated for the upcoming year, and One Cut of the Dead was a recommendation from Darren that was spot on.
You should also get Lisa's recommendation on Donnybrook.
I saw
I
a
wish I
facial
could
expression.
make cricket sounds with my mouth, but I can't.
All right, B, you're number 9.
Oh wait, are we gonna?
Oh yes, you're right. Good.
that's right,
Keep me on track. So Lowell Nelson picks. I guess this is the Lowell's favorite film of the year. Brian, you might be a fan of this. A Simple Favor. And Lowell says just because it was crazy fun and Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively were so perfect. Widows is close second. I'm not mad at that. Widows is a great film as well. Yeah, you and you're not top 10.
Yeah. Like I said, it's around 22, 23 on my list overall.
Don't do that shit. Don't start that
I
shit
know,
again,
I
man.
know. I can't remember. I have it up here somewhere. But like I said, I recently rewatched it, and I have a blast with this movie, man. Blake Lively is just phenomenal in this role.
Lisa and I rewatched it after.
I watched it for the first time. I enjoyed it a lot.
did?
You know me. I like plots and schemes. I like things where you're rewarded for really paying attention, and
Yeah.
and it was, silly fun. There are cards in that movie that were played that you don't see played a lot.
That is true.
Yeah,
Y'all
but
making
like I
me
said,
curious,
it's-
man.
It's really kooky, Darren.
I need to see it.
Kooky is the perfect word for it.
So I saw the trailer, and Blake Lively sees always dressed to the nines. What you
Yeah.
thought?
It's
Yeah, I love the clothes,
Okay.
but do you know what? I don't want to wear Blake Lively's clothes. What's the other lady's name?
Anna Kendrick.
I want Anna Kendrick's ModCloth clothes. It's sad when the perfect mom character has all the clothes I want to wear. I'm like, she looks cool to me. I don't know what they're talking
so
about.
the clothes she was wearing before she kind of had that transition and stuff.
All right, you
Yeah.
spoiling it for me, B. All
All
right.
right, yeah.
Okay.
But even to me, her taste didn't change that much pre and post.
Yeah,
She always looked adorbs.
Yeah. That movie, it's a lot of fun.
I'm gonna check it out.
The sweater with the pom poms. I'm like, I want some pom poms in my fashion. I want some fashion poms. Oh, nice.
So it's my number 9.
9.
Okay, so number 9 for me, we talked a little bit about last week on 2 of you guys' list. The Night Comes for Us.
Yeah.
Number 9. This movie, I mean, growing up an action junkie as a child and watching a lot of John Woo films, and then kind of being reinvigorated with the genre when Gareth Evans did The Raid and The Raid 2. Timo Tjahjanto, I think I'm saying his name right.
Better than I did.
He raises that bar and then smacks you in the face with that bar. Like it's incredible what he does with these action sequences. I mean, he makes you feel every bone crack, every tendon slice. Like he leaves no stone unturned when it comes to the brutality that he shows on screen in every which way. When you talk about those female enforcers that you were talking about last week, the one that has kind of like that whip chain or that little
razor wire,
that razor, and like what she does like in the apartment to one of the guys with his wrist. Oh my god, it's just, I mean, it gets me lightheaded thinking about some of that stuff.
It's flashback to the green room scene with Anton Yelchin where he brings his hand back in and it's all fucked up. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's
And,
the reaction.
I mean, you would think a lot of this violence would be a little bit kind of more not fantastical, but a little bit more outrageous. Where okay, I'm not. It's not going to affect me in that way, but still, when you see it and you hear it, and it's so visceral.
That when he kicks his leg accidentally into that metal bar.
That to me is the most
Dude, I've got
painful
goosebumps
thing
now.
in that movie.
When seeing that at Fantastic Fest in the theater, that was the one moment that stood out because I know that pain. I could feel that pain when you hit your shin. Oh my god!
It was cool at Fantastic Fest, listening to Timo talk about the violence in this movie because he's so humble and he's like, oh, well, the reason why there's so much blood and stuff is because we're sloppy and you can cover up, and he comes from a horror background, you can cover up a lot of some of that pristine choreography that you see in maybe some higher budget martial arts films. They don't have time for that. They don't have time for that shit. So they're just just throw some blood on it. But to me, it works and it makes it its own thing, which I think is so beautiful and so fun and gross.
It does, and the framework of the story really just kind of supports these action sequences, but it doesn't go without really having that weight of those characters. Like Joe Taslim brings so much charisma on screen, and he's so good. And like I said, it's such a straightforward story with, you know, like the assassin or the hitman with a heart of gold. I mean, we've seen that this year with Sicario, with Benicio's character, but even in this story, it still kind of works with his character and those character moments. And the last thing I'll say about this is, outside of just the film, it was really just the conversation around the film on Twitter and how Timo was so engaging with the fans, especially when it got premiered on Netflix, and how people were responding to the film on Netflix, and how much he was just interacting with the fans. It almost feels like this movie took on a life of its own, and that was fun to see and fun to be a part of as well.
Well, I think that's one of the themes of the year almost. Is it feels like this is the year that filmmakers really did embrace the idea of interacting with their fans and celebrating the release of their movies.
Yep.
That's been a big part of this year.
Yeah, so that's my number 9.
All right, Wife Dork,
Yes.
number 9.
My number 9 is the documentary "Won't You Be My Neighbor?"
Yeah.
The story of Fred Rogers and how he became the icon of children's television that he is today. I just found his entire story so inspiring. Just the idea of, he saw a need, he saw children's television, he saw how undignified and unsophisticated it was, and how it didn't address all of these issues that children are going through every day. And so he saw a need, and he studied ministry, and he said, well, this is going to be my ministry. I'm going to speak to children and tell them what they need to hear. And sometimes I wonder, because, you know, I grew up in conservative household, and sometimes I wonder, like, how I turned out to be like such the like hippie I turned out to be. But when I think about what I was being told by Sesame Street, what I was being told by Fred Rogers, that everybody is special, everybody has something to offer. There's always reward in being kind to someone else or making room for someone else. And I just don't know if, like, when my parents told me, okay, you can watch channels 32, 24, and 26. You can watch the three public television stations. Like, I don't know if they thought about how, like, setting me down in front of socialized television, that they're going to end up with, like, this crazy liberal daughter who's like, you know, gay marriage is wonderful. You know, I don't know. But to me, I loved the opportunity to revisit those ideals that I grew up with. The idea that every human person has inherent value, and that I myself am a special person, and that at whatever I do, as long as I'm kind, is worthy. I just loved revisiting that, and I appreciated being reminded, because with the direction our culture is going, and with the Christian right, sometimes where you see them out and they're, you know, holding signs that say God hates gays, or they're protesting, you know, Fred Rogers' funeral,
Comic-Con.
Yeah. You know, sometimes the way I feel against Christians as adversarial, you know, and that Christianity has like a hateful message. And it was really nice to, you know, see like, well, Christian values can be beautiful and can make room for everyone. You know, Fred Rogers made room in his pool for, you know, the policeman. I forget his name. That's not Mr. McFeely. What's the policeman's name? I forget. Anyway, that guy was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, he made room for people. And even though he, like, early in his life may have been slightly more conservative, as he got older, his heart just opened up more. And it made me really feel for him when, like, towards the end of his career, after the show had been canceled, he felt really discouraged by the fact that he, like, especially, like, they showed some clips of him speaking to children following 9/11. He was very disappointed that these messages of goodness and kindness, how he felt like he really didn't make that much of a difference. And I just wish that I had the opportunity to tell him, like, I would be, if it wasn't for public television, if it wasn't for Fred Rogers, I would be a different person. Like, a lot of people would be different. Lot of people. Yeah. The fact that it feels like the younger generations are becoming more open-hearted and making room for more people. And, just, I do see the goodness that Fred Rogers spoke of slowly seeping in. It takes a long time, and hate is so fucking potent. Yeah. It's just so, it can just, hate is like, it permeates everything. It's like a bad smell. You know what I mean? It just ruins and gets everywhere and ruins everything. Mm-hmm. But I do think that ultimately love will win, and ultimately, humanity is going to be a better place. And it's going to be thanks to Fred Rogers and people like him who say, how about just be kind? Let's see what makes your neighbor happy, and let's do that thing. So yeah. Oh, and also I got to watch it with Darren. It was a very special. That was one of my favorite screenings this year, actually. Yeah, totally.
Sincerely.
Yeah, and I just loved, after that movie, me and Darren, deep eye contact, tears in our eyes, telling each other we love each other. Yeah. The people, like the lady behind us, going telling us how grateful she was to be part of the Mr. Rogers legacy, the generation of special children. Yeah. It's funny because, I told my dad after the movie, man, I just had this beautiful experience watching Won't You Be My Neighbor, and it just reminded me, I am special. And then my dad goes, you're special, but you got to work for it. And I'm like, what? What? Bring it back down. My dad missed the entire point, but he did later watch the documentary, and he liked it a lot. So, but I didn't check to see him. But did he have to work for it, Dad? Being special.
Number 9, Lisa.
That's my number 9.
That's
what I'm talking about. My number 9. So get ready for me to cry during my number 8. Sob in my number 7, wet myself on my number 6.
Okay. Well then,
it's gonna get damp over here.
All right,
some diapers, bro.
B, your number 9.
Oh God. You're gonna hear the 2 words "Fantastic Fest" probably a lot over the course of
not
these
from
2
Billy's
episodes.
corner.
God damn!
I was going to be the savage, brutal one to bring that up, but thank you, Lisa, for beating me to the punch. But none of the films I saw at Fantastic Fest actually made my top 10. But why I'm bringing it up is because my number 9, Thunder Road, from writer, performer, producer Jim Cummings, is the movie.
Boy Wonder.
Yeah, Boy Wonder. Yeah. Is the director I think about when I think about Fantastic Fest, because I saw 38 movies at Fantastic Fest. And then I followed that up the next day. We took a plane from Austin to Virginia, and we took a car to Winchester to continue the marathon with Lost Weekend. So after all of those films, and then a few more through the course of the first couple of days of Lost Weekend, Thunder Road ended up being my favorite movie of that entire experience, that 10 plus days. Yeah. And, Darren's talking about, film fog and how, God, I don't even remember what happened in that movie. And will I like it the second time around? And it just shows when you watch something like Thunder Road, it could be, the one movie you watch that day, or it could have been the 12th movie you've watched that day. When you encounter something that's so impactful, you feel it. Yeah. And, I watched Thunder Road. I think it was 4th movie that day. And that movie destroyed me in every sense of the word. It's the cliche of it made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me feel happy. It made me feel sad. And what's so miraculous to me about Thunder Road is those emotions aren't happening over the course of its entire runtime. They're happening between words in one sentence. And I don't think anybody else on this planet could pull that off except for Jim Cummings. And as much as I love the screenplay of Thunder Road and I appreciate the direction of Thunder Road and the supporting cast, it's his performance that really knocks me down. The fact that he can take that opening scene, which was originally a short film, where he is attempting to connect with his mother after she's passed at her funeral with this song that she loved, Bruce Springsteen's Thunder Road, and he's going to perform it for those in attendance at the mother's funeral. And watching this man melt down and deteriorate, it's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's all that stuff I was just saying. And then he takes that as the opening and then carries it through the rest of the movie, all the way up to the last scene, where you're still going, is this a comedy? Is this a drama? What is this movie? It's it truly was an incredible watch in the theater, and I've watched it again at home, and I'm still just really floored by what Jim Cummings was able to do with the dialogue that he created. So yeah, Thunder Road, number 9.
All right, Billy, your number 9.
It's funny that you describe it like that, because my number 9 is Tigers Are Not Afraid by Issa Lopez, written and directed by her, and that is a movie that caught me similar to the same way that Thunder Road can impact you. It's there's something about the movies that can make you just stop and pay attention, and I guess we saw that in February last weekend. That was February this year, right?
Some people saw it at Fantastic Fest the year before.
Oh, man. It's fun. We have fun here.
Take a shot, everybody.
Oh, good. But no, I saw it in February, but for 10 months. And I think that this is one of the movies that it's not like it's something that constantly sits on my brain where I'm thinking about it day in and day out. But I don't think that there's been a week that's gone by where I haven't thought about some particular aspect of this movie. And I think the thing that I love the most about it is, for Issa Lopez, she's not a first-time filmmaker, but as she describes it, this is the first time that she's felt like she's kind of put her story out onto the screen. I hit the microphone.
How dare you?
What is this, like your first time or something?
Yeah, Rook. Oh, Jesus. What a mess this is. It's okay. I'm going to muddle through it. But no, it's the first time that she put herself on the screen. And I spend a lot of time thinking about people finding the opportunities to make films and tell the stories that they want to tell, and what a challenge that is for them to be able to do it. And I think the easiest thing to let go of when you're looking for that opportunity to tell a story is the thing that beats the closest to your own heart. And I'm very happy for Issa Lopez that she was able to find the time and the space to realize something that she felt kind of defined her hopes and interests. And, the movie is sad, and it's a tragedy, and it's absolutely devastating. And I think it's very real, but she presents the fantastical and a sense of magic with it, and using magic to vanquish the darkness around us. And I think just by being fantastical, she captures something very real that all of us sort of experience. And to think that for her looking to make a movie that really represented her, that was the first time that she was able to put it onto the screen. Boy, did she just knock it out of the park. I think it's an amazing film. So that's my number 9.
All right. My number 9 is, guess what, Lisa? Yeah, it is also Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Yeah.
For everything that Lisa said. And this movie was a film, we talked about angry cinema this year. Lisa, you mentioned a bunch of children's films being an alternative counterbalance to the angry voices in cinema, and movies offering hope and a positive outlook. And Won't You Be My Neighbor was the film that I needed in 2018, and the rest of the world needed in 2018. As you said, because of the state of our society right now, the world would be a much better place if, you know, everyone followed Fred Rogers' lead. And the only reason why we haven't totally, completely shit the bed is because there are some people out there who were part of that generation, who were raised on those particular values and are genuinely good people. We live in a time where, unfortunately, if you look to the news and social media, you will see mostly the ugliness. But there are people out there who are doing good, who are being kind to other people, just because it's the right thing to do. And that's the thing that keeps the world turning. That's the thing that, even though you don't see it, it's there. There are people who are touching people's lives based on the same things that Fred Rogers believed and acted on, just showing kindness, acceptance. You know, there is a shift in the younger generation of acceptance, and it is because that the generation before them, I believe, instilled those values that Fred Rogers was talking about and living. And it's only going to benefit us more as the human race for us to grow in that way that Fred Rogers grew. Because even in the beginning, even though in the beginning he was the positive person, I want to talk to the children and reach out to them and everyone else, he still had some growing to do, and he did over the course of his life. And that's what keeps a society alive and thriving, is growth, personal growth. And we are at a time where we need to be doing that. I mean, we always need to do that as human beings, but especially now, we need that. And so, yeah, I needed this film. I needed that experience watching this film with Lisa. I needed the reminder that, yeah, all you see is the bad shit, Darren, but there are good people in the world. And so I'm so forever grateful for the documentary. I'm so forever grateful for Fred Rogers. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He's a part of not only my childhood, but also my adult life, because I have to think that all the positive values that I have instilled in me are the things that I'm passing along to my daughter that will help her to continue to be a good person and grow up to be an even better person. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Have you shown Sia any Mr. Rogers? I'd be interested.
When she was, I'm trying to think what age range. She knows Mr. Rogers. She's
Yeah.
seen when the period when she was like 4 to 6, maybe 3 to 6, she was watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So she knows of him. And again, not only do I instill those particular values to her, but also my nephew and other people, how I treat grown-ups, not even just my daughter. Like, I talk to and I treat people how, firstly, I want to be treated, as far as acceptance from, in spite of all of my flaws or things that I feel inadequate about. I offer that to everyone else because I want someone to accept me in all my imperfections. So I have to give that respect and acceptance to everyone else. And all that comes from, my upbringing, and a part of my upbringing was Mr. Rogers. So yeah, that's my number 9. I want to go. Our next response we got was from Christopher Gabbro. Christopher says, "You know how I complain that in movies and shows that throw back to the 80s always have the nerdy character's room have a hanging poster of The Thing? I wonder if movies in 20 or 30 years will look back and have the nerdy kid have a hanging poster of Annihilation." End quote.
Yeah, maybe Gabbro. I don't know. He's really hoping that one of us has Annihilation on their top 10.
Uh-oh.
Well, judging by everyone's face, I can tell you my list right now. Sorry, Chris. Judging by everyone else's list, this will probably be the only time we're talking about that movie.
On my 25, Gabbro.
So, yay.
It's a great movie.
I enjoyed it, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think
same.
it's definitely worth a watch.
It's on my 25, Billy.
It's on my 25. It's my number 31.
All right, so there's that, Chris.
So I might bump it to 32 because Mom and Dad is my 32, and I think I like Mom and Dad a little bit more than Annihilation.
But what I would like to say, though, is, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that that's a pretty sharp point, is that there are movies that are not appreciated when they come out, like The Thing. Like, it's such an anachronism to have posters of The Thing, because nobody gave a fuck about that movie when it came out. It found its life way after. And I think Annihilation definitely has a chance to find an audience as it lives in Blu-ray, as people go through and discover it, because I don't think people saw it in the theater. I think this one is one. I think he might be right that it might be a classic waiting to be discovered.
All right, Brian, your number 8.
Okay, get all my notes and stuff here.
What the fuck? You had a whole round to do that, man.
Well, wait,
No,
we're supposed to do notes? This is all off the cuff so far.
IMDb already did my notes.
Yeah. Oh,
Have you heard of IMDb?
So all this stuff I wrote today was for nothing?
Brian, don't worry. I also have notes.
All right, so we're on 8. So my number 8 is Black Klansman.
All right.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, Black Klansman. This is a movie that just rocked me when I went to see it in the movie theater. Now, Spike Lee, talk about Spike Lee a lot. I think he's probably one of the most prolific directors that we have working today. If you look at his filmography, he's been working for 4 decades. You look at his filmography from his early days of Do the Right Thing, School Days, to him doing big studio films like Inside Man, to doing these small $1 million budget films like Red Hook Summer or Bamboozled. He's been all over the place, and I mean, he's been hit or miss. 25th Hour is another one I could think of. He's been hit or miss, but I think with this movie, he's probably made his best movie that he's made probably since Inside Man in about over 10 years. About 10 years. And to take the story of Ron Stallworth, who was the first black police officer in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and who successfully infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan to become a member to stop cross burnings and other acts of terrorism as well. It's such a fascinating story. And Spike Lee takes Ron Stallworth's story to really try to comment on our society and the climate that we live in today. The way he's expertly able to take those racist elements of the story from the 70s and correlate that to what's actually happening today in our political climate, and how the KKK has infiltrated a lot of our political and governmental or government organizations. It's extremely scary, and it's extremely prevalent. And I don't know. I just think that say it a lot. Angry filmmaking. And Spike Lee was angry. If you watch interviews with this man, especially post Cannes when they debuted this, he goes off. He goes off on Trump. He goes off on the situation that this world is in now, and he is definitely trying to make a statement with this movie, and I think he effectively does it. But at the same time, with all that being said, I think this movie does a great job of being a great satire and also a good crime drama as well at the center of the story. And the performances I thought were just amazing. Adam Driver, I think, gives the performance of his career probably, and I think he definitely needs to be nominated for what he was able to do in this film, with being able to play this character and with his own conflictions as a Jewish man infiltrating the KKK. Yeah, it's just an absolutely phenomenal film that has just stayed with me since I saw it in the theater.
I think the sequence where it juxtaposes the white power initiation with the KKK, with the speech about the origins of the idea of black power and where that passion comes from, and the way that he puts heart, it on the face of it, it seems like it's just like, here's one side and here's the other side, but the way that he shoots it and the way that he layers in the speech while that's going on, it really does give you the sense that, you know, one is coming from a terrible place of hate.
While it wasn't filmed as a response to Trump's, like, there's two sides to everything, it really feels like the definitive statement on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it might be like my favorite scene of the entire year.
I think it's
with Harry Belafonte.
Yeah, where Harry Belafonte's telling his story.
Absolutely.
And they show them, because that's the scene where they also throw them like popcorn at the screen.
At Birth of a
Nation, right?
Yeah.
And you hear Harry Belafonte telling his story, and then you see that and how it's a laugh for them, and how it's from a position of derision and hatefulness for the guys initiating into the KKK and all of that, and then you go back to Harry Belafonte, and it's such from a profound place of hurt and injury and
survival
Absolutely. And
absolutely.
I genuinely think it is. I think it is the best sequence film this year.
Yeah, I mean, the way Spike is able to just put, like, juxtapose, like you say, the speech with the imagery that he's showing with the KKK watching Birth of a Nation and the clips they decide to show from Birth of a Nation. It's impeccably the way he's able to kind of just navigate and edit those scenes together. And even the Kwame Ture speech,
is a good one too.
in the first act of that film is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, those two sequences in that movie, and I talked about this in one of my YouTube videos, Spike Lee lets these scenes, he gives breath to these scenes. He lets them play out. He lets you as an audience member experience this with no interruption, because he needs you as an audience member, black, white, yellow, indifferent, it doesn't matter. He needs you to feel that. He needs you to understand that. He needs you to feel that pain. And I think he does that effectively in this movie. It's phenomenal work that he's done.
All right, Wife Dork, your number 8.
My number 8 is an extraordinarily sweet film that I enjoyed so much, and it's called An Evening with Beverly Loughlin.
Yeah.
Directed by Jim Hosking. I went into this film at Fantastic Fest, sorry, Billy, with a lot of trepidation because of The Greasy Strangler. I did not see The Greasy Strangler.
How could you?
Because it was like, everybody who saw The Greasy Strangler was like, Lisa should not watch this movie. I do not do well with things that are gross and yucky and sloppy and yucky. So I wasn't entirely sure what I was getting into with An Evening with Beverly Loughlin. I knew that it was going to be very affected. Like, you can tell from the trailers, like, he's a very stylized director with his own kooky aesthetic. Kind of, I put in the vein of Wes Anderson, where it's got his signature all over it. His signature is all over the dialogue. It's all over the styling. But what slapped me on the side of the head and made me love this movie is how tremendously sincere it is and how much heart there is in this movie. The main character, the center of the film, is Lulu Danger, played by Aubrey Plaza. And she is just like, I mean, just the perfect person for this film, because she's landed herself primarily in the comedy world, and she tends to play these very kind of flat but sassy, sarcastic women, but she has these huge, beautiful doe-like eyes that you just get lost in, but that have a lot of like emotion to them. So the movie is really about how you can hold on to a piece of your past and let it affect your other relationships and affect your worldview, and how you really have to. There are some things from your past sometimes that need closure, and so this movie is all about Lulu Danger trying to get closure on a past relationship that she had with Beverly Loughlin, who's Craig Robinson in this movie. Ooh, nice quote, pull quote. Brad has such a great memory for quotes. But talking about the Craig Robinson character, he he is kind of, through most of this movie, all he does is speak through grunts, and he seems to be a very moody, egotistical performer. Like, he keeps bumping his performance night after night after night. He has his manager / best friend of Rodney von Donkensteger, played by Matt Berry,
So good.
who waits on him hand and foot to create an environment in which this very touchy guy can perform. But when Craig Robinson finally makes his music, which I find just so lovely, but when he finally expresses his emotion, retroactively, he gives so much meaning to that ridiculous performance. Explaining like what about him made him express himself in that way. I found the end of this movie so uplifting and fun and romantic, and it's just like a place I would like to be, I guess. I don't know. I of course came away wanting to wear everything that Lulu Danger wears. She's very much an opaque stocking and kooky sweater. I would love to be an opaque stocking with a kooky sweater.
She had a bunch of kooky sweaters.
She has a bunch of kooky sweaters, and my second favorite mustard skirt of 2018. My first favorite, of course, being the mustard skirt in Bad Times at El Royale.
Oh, yeah.
With that came with a matching shoe. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. So anyway, I love An Evening with Beverly Loughlin. If you haven't watched it yet, I don't know, any movie that makes Maria Bamford look like the normal one, I'm just like, amen. Amen. I love it. So, yay, that's why it's my whatever number we're on, 8.
8. All right, B, your number 8.
My number 8 is Paul Schrader's First Reformed. A film that I wasn't terribly excited to see originally. And, Schrader, he's made a bunch of movies in recent years, sort of like with Spike Lee, that have just not connected with me.
Yeah.
And then comes along this story of Ethan Hawke's priest in despair, and you hear that and you're like, well, that's a fun time at the movies. Boy, all right. But what I discovered is there comes a scene early on when Ethan Hawke is presented with another individual who is also suffering from a form of despair. And this guy, he's married to Amanda Seyfried's Mary, and they're about to have a child, and he just can't figure out why on earth we would want to bring a kid into this universe that we have created. And Ethan Hawke's minister engages with this man in despair, and the conversation they have thrills him, and he becomes engaged in trying to combat this man's argument, even though he probably feels very similar to this guy. And he's drawn into this world that this individual is crying out from. And that, not a lot of people have seen the movie, so I won't talk about what happens from that point forward. But how a person becomes re-engaged with society is really fascinating to me, and what it does to his individual and where Toller goes from there, the path he goes down. He sinks further, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. And then, the ending, it's another one of those endings where you're either going to go, yes, fist pump, what a perfect ending, or WTF, or you're going to say, F this movie. I've seen all of those reactions. To me, I'm still processing what I think the last moments of First Reformed mean for the character. But ultimately, I don't care where this guy goes after credits, I was so engaged with his struggle that it just became, it's a fascinating movie. And it's a movie that I certainly wanted people to watch so that I could talk to them. I wanted Lisa to watch it to see what her point of view on the movie would be and if she liked it. And I think you liked it.
I did like it. It's in my top 25.
Yay! Win for Brad. I don't know. I think it's wonderful to see a filmmaker return to heights he hasn't been in quite some time.
It's my number 27.
Excellent.
In my top 25.
And Ethan Hawke is just so fantastic in the movie. I love him. And, Amanda Seyfried's really great. And Cedric the Entertainer shows up for a little bit. And, I love a few of the exchanges that he has with Ethan Hawke in the movie. But, yeah.
It's an interesting meditation on how much hypocrisy can a person really live with.
Infinite.
Well, hopefully. Because
otherwise,
I think in his, time as a minister, he, that's one of those positions where you're supposed to have all of the right answers. And I think that in that first conversation he has with that guy in despair, he gets a high after, oh my goodness, I had all of the answers that have been taught to me just at my fingertips and I'm just shooting them off one by one. But then that guy has a retort for each and every one. And he has, for every reason there is to hope, there is 2 reasons to despair. And I think that and he could not. And that guy did not want to survive with that amount of hypocrisy. And I think that kind of infects Ethan Hawke. He was already pretty despairing, but
it weaponizes his despair.
Yeah. Yeah. And he really tries to right his world and have people see things with the clarity that he now has. And the degree to success he has with that, I'll just have you find out.
All right. Billy, your number 8.
Is not a movie featuring weaponized despair. My number 8 is Mission Impossible Fallout. I think as a movie just standing alone by itself, I love how they keep raising the bar on the stunt sequences that they're doing with this movie, and I am continually impressed with Tom Cruise's resourcefulness and physical resiliency when it comes to throwing himself at a movie production. I think that that's fantastic and incredibly impressive. But I think why it ranks on my top 10 list is, the Mission Impossible franchise is one that I think has long been defined by a rotating series of directors and kind of putting their own individualized stamp on each movie. And I think that that was a huge part of the selling point of the franchise for me all the way through Rogue Nation. And when Christopher McQuarrie comes back to do Fallout, I think that gave me a depth of appreciation for the through line of the character that they're creating with Ethan Hunt, and it gave me more appreciation for what kind of they've been growing as his perspective as an agent and his own reliance on optimism and faith in his friends to accomplish things. And when they announced that McQuarrie was going to come back, I thought, I really like Rogue Nation, but it feels like it's out of place, out of step with what the franchise is doing. And having him come back, I think, was a big success for me. And I think it was a big step for them to bring him back for a second film, and I think a bold step for what they'd been doing. And goodness gracious, something fell. I don't know what it was. I didn't knock it over, just so we're clear.
Literally picture frames are falling off of our walls right now from Billy's talking.
Well, that happens. Look, people have to throw themselves off of walls.
It's like the old saying goes, talk until all the pictures fall off the wall.
Oh.
Yeah. I was thinking more like The Omen, but that's a different kind of going off the wall.
What I love about Fallout versus Rogue Nation is that McQuarrie was absolutely aware of how fans look forward to different styles, like visual aesthetics, so that when he came back for Fallout, he ditched his cinematographer from Rogue Nation and brought on Rob Hardy for Fallout.
I think he had a whole completely different crew for
Yeah.
the most part. Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting approach to making the movie. It's kind of combining the best of those worlds. But it does surprisingly lead me down for sort of a trilogy event with those guys. And hope, like belief in yourself and hope in your friends. I feel like there's like a narrative, like I feel like you could write a hot take on the Mission Impossible franchise that it's like a pitch for Scientology, but I feel like I need to read some Scientology books. But I think
The Dorkies is not a place for that, Billy.
I think it might be.
Take
I'm sorry.
your hot takes elsewhere.
I've been drinking your fucking 9% alcohol by volume cider,
You don't want them to come
and
knocking
that's
at your
where I
door.
am.
Drunk enough to be Scientologists.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. That's my number 8.
All right. My number 8 is Richard Shepard's The Perfection, starring Allison Williams and Logan Browning. Another film that I saw at Fantastic Fest this year. Sorry, Billy.
Oh, that's okay. Look, you guys had a great time at Fantastic Fest, and I'm
Without
happy for
you.
Oh shit, that was hurtful.
I was just gonna jump into this synopsis, but
I got to return to what would Fred Rogers do? WWFRD. He would not do that to Billy.
It's fine.
well, so I'm not gonna spoil too much because the film is it's a drama thriller.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah, and on IMDb it says a cello prodigy's pursuit for perfection takes a sinister turn, and that's all I'll say, because I don't even think I had that much of awareness regarding the film going into the movie, but like to hear you all talk about A Simple Favor and how that movie subverted expectations, or you thought you knew where it was going, but then it would take left turns that surprised you. Although I haven't seen that film, The Perfection has that similar, or had that similar effect for me, and I was pleasantly surprised and continuously entertained while watching this movie. And that final shot of the film, I found to be, at very least composition wise, one of the most beautiful shots. Like, I love that last shot of that movie. It's nuts, that movie and that last shot. But I found it beautiful. And it was that's of any film festival, that's one of the fun things. It's one of the things that we talk about is, you going into a movie that you know nothing about, you never even heard of, and coming away with something that you take. Again, this is one of the movies that, and even in spite of festival haze, it's stuck with me. The experience of watching that movie stuck with me. The enjoyment of it, the surprises. Like Donnybrook, it is one that I've thought about continuously. At the very least, that final shot, like it's seared into my brain, and with that comes the rest of the movie that I continue to think about. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to rewatching it again. Not to see if I still like it or if it's good as I thought it did, but thought it was. But because I know how I feel about the movie. I know I genuinely enjoyed this film. I love this movie. So yeah, that's all I'll say. I want other people to see it so we can talk about it.
Darren, I want you to temper your expectations of A Simple Favor right now, because it's not as wild as The Perfection.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, The Perfection, I dug that movie, and so that's why it's my number 8.
Is The Perfection out now?
No,
not yet.
Okay.
When it is available, Billy, I will let you know.
All right.
I will hop on it.
All right.
All right. So our number 7 is from Jeff Kovacic. It's Kovatchich.
We can't say your name, Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff. And I quote, "Won't you be named? Oh
no!
Let me start over. Number 7 is Jeff, and I'm going to skip his last name because I don't want to butcher it. And I quote, "Won't you be named?"
Won't you be
I'm
my
gonna get
name?
through it.
He
No,
hasn't been
I'm gonna do
drinking
it.
any of the
I haven't
cider.
drank anything. I had some shit from Subway. Anyway, Won't You Be My Neighbor for obvious reasons. I didn't even look at it, and I was able to get through. That was my problem. I can't read. I could just recite. Anyway, for very obvious reasons, Jeff, absolutely. Yeah, as Lisa has stated, as I have stated, it's an amazing film about an amazing person, and it makes you feel amazing when you watch it. So there's that. All right, Brian, your number 7.
Okay. Number 7.
He's got a big smile on his face.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how people are going to feel about this one. Oh, no, I know. My number 7 is Avengers Infinity War.
All right.
Kind of, yeah, it's my number 7.
All right.
So what I love about this movie is the MCU. We've talked about the MCU probably since this podcast has been started.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
been talking about the MCU. And we finally have gotten to the point where we've come to the culmination of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Avengers Infinity War, at least for this first part. And what I love about this movie is how it really rewards the fans who have been there from the beginning with the first Iron Man film. And to me, the Russo brothers do not disappoint to give us something that is satisfying for those fans who have been there from the beginning. To be able to combine all these different tones, worlds from all these other different directors, you're able to bring in the mystic world of Doctor Strange, the neighborhood from Spider-Man, the cosmic from Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're able to bring, and even though we have our heroes fractioned off into different stories, but they still are able to intertwine these characters in a really cohesive and natural way, and to also just bring in the character arcs that we've established from these previous films, to see where Tony Stark is and his motivation for why he wants to go to Titan. This movie, for me, made me a bigger fan of Doctor Strange than actual Doctor Strange in his own movie. I loved his story. To see the Guardians and the relationship between Gamora and Thanos, to see Nebula, who in the first Guardians you may have thought would have been a throwaway character, who has become a pivotal role in this grander universe and is such a sympathetic character.
It's crazy that it's like
Yeah.
Iron Man and Nebula on Titan at the end of that movie.
Exactly. It's wild. So, and to see these combination of characters, I'm gonna get to that. There's holding the Thor with Stormbreaker. But yeah, and Thor, his arc from the beginning, from the opening of that scene. Spoiler alert, because everybody has seen this movie. This is not like Thunder Road or One Cut of the Dead. Everyone has seen this. If you haven't, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast, but still listen anyway. But
we can literally afford to lose no listeners. Each of you count.
Exactly. But like Thor's plight, what happens at the beginning with his people being demolished, with the death of his brother, of Loki, where that leaves Thor at the beginning of this film, and that journey that he has to take. The quieter moments in this movie when he has that heart to heart with Rocket, about him, being as old as he is and never losing a battle and going up against Thanos again. Like these, Chris Hemsworth was just amazing in this role, and the most crowd pleasing moment in this movie, my favorite scene of the year, is Thor landing in Wakanda after they forged Stormbreaker. Is the first time we saw that at Tyson's, AMC Tyson's, and we talk a lot about you talked about this, Darren, with like how the MCU and specifically Joss Whedon did this in the previous Avengers films with Hulk, with I'm Always Angry, or Vision picking up the hammer. You set up these moments perfectly, and he sets that moment up, and we don't even know it's coming or feel that it's coming, but when he lands in Wakanda, it's everything. It's everything. It's you're literally cheering at the screen, and to be able to build those moments up and the way that music comes in is a testament to the Russos and what they were able to do. It's not a perfect film. Of course, there's always little things that I would have liked to have seen better, but of course, because the economy of time, we're not able to do that. Certain reunions I wanted to maybe see fleshed out a little bit more, of course, like with Cap and Bucky, or with Natasha and Bruce Banner. those kind of got fell to the wayside, which I wanted to see a little bit more from them. But I'm pretty sure we'll get more of that in Endgame. But with what they gave us, with the core characters that this movie specifically wanted to focus on, I thought it was pitch perfect, and it was just amazing.
Man, you said this movie gave you a better appreciation of Stephen Strange.
Yeah.
I've said on the podcast before, Banner and / the Hulk were my favorite Avenger. This movie, and I was not expecting this in the slightest. This movie gave me a new appreciation of Thor, and I don't even start with the beginning of the film. It goes back to the first film. I've always said that I've not been a huge fan of that first Thor movie. I've been the oddball that digs Dark World more, but with Thor in this film, I found him. He's now my favorite Avenger, and that's only not only because Hulk didn't get a lot of screen time. I'm pretty sure if he was on screen more and he fucked some shit up, this conversation would be different. But right now,
his shit fucked up.
But with Thor,
what Darren's saying is, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, I'm that dude. I'm that dude. No, but even comparing, Banner's journey versus Thor's journey, the moment that gets me the most, my favorite moment from Thor, it's not even when he lands in Wakanda. It's a character moment. It's when he first meets the Guardians and Peter has his chest out and he's doing the God-man voice, and Drax says, "Well, of course Gamora knows. She's the daughter of Thanos." And mind you, at this point, Thor has witnessed Thanos murder his brother in cold blood with his bare hands. Previous film, he's lost his father, and he's estranged from Jane Foster, and he had to kill his sister. He's lost Mjolnir. Thor's lost almost everything. His people, his mother. Yeah. So Drax says, well, she would know. She's the daughter of Thanos. And Thor gets up and he approaches her, and instead of being angry with her, he empathizes with her and he sympathizes with her. And it was a moment that I was not expecting, but it was one that I infinitely appreciated, because for me, it shows tremendous growth from this arrogant guy in the opening of Brana's film, where he's coming down, he's taking all the cheers, and he's tossing his hammer up and flipping it in his hand, and he's grown so much. And for a person to experience tremendous loss, and I'm not even talking about in movies, but I mean in real life, for the people who affect me the most are the people who end up helping you, and then you find out they have this story of their own that is just filled with so much pain and trauma, but you would never know it because of their interactions with you being so cheerful, so kind, and so warm. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, had Thor not said, if you had not known of any of his past, you would have thought like Thor just had the perfect life. Like he was just a good guy who, oh man, I feel your pain. I'm sorry that your father is killing shit, and I feel bad for you. But Thor's gone through so much, and in spite of all that, he's still able to be a decent person. I was going to say human being, but he's a god. But he's still able to be a kind person. And so, to me, that struck me profoundly. And so, yeah, he's my favorite Avenger right now.
I think just writing wise, Thor is the character who's evolved the most. And I think that in that first film, nobody was really sure how this God man was going to be received. And like you can create, like, not necessarily plot wise, though you can, like plot wise, he's been changed by the events of his life, but he has been tweaked by writers. If you follow who he is in the first film to the Thor that we meet in the first Avengers movie, where he's, he has that one line, he's my brother. He killed a bunch of people. Adopted. Just that one that one line, that like Joss Whedon-y little moment. And then Taika Waititi and Ragnarok, and that now finally how he's being written in Infinity War. Like, I feel like his character has been kind of through the rock tumbler of these films, and now, like, because I feel like Tony Stark, his character has grown a lot through the events of the film, but like they pretty much had him nailed down by the first movie.
He's been consistent,
you know,
even with his art.
I think what's awesome about the MCU is it's replicating that very experience from the comic books, right? These characters have been around for decades, and they've been told by different artists and different writers, and they've tried to maintain some semblance of what the character is, but with each new creative team comes an evolution. And that's what's super obvious with Thor, but it's occurring with every Marvel character.
Interesting, yeah.
All right. So
that was Brian's number what?
Yeah.
7.
Lisa,
Oh, it's my
your
turn.
number 7. Yep.
My number 7 is another Marvel movie. It is Black Panther.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what the MCU as a unit is doing with choosing their directors and letting their directors create their own movie that has their own specific voice. And I think that they just struck positive gold, vibranium, I guess, with Ryan Coogler. And the story that this movie tells, I think, it's just it feels personal to him. It feels like a very through the lens of the American experience and commenting on the American Black experience. I think it's just so tremendous and such a wonderful story. I like the fact that T'Challa is coming from this lineage and grew up believing that his father and his father's father, and as far as back as his family goes, as the leader of Wakanda, as being infallible. And he starts his role as king as we have to maintain the status quo. But then when he discovers what the price is to keep Wakanda a secret and what it has done to Eric Killmonger, the hurt that his father caused directly by a single act of evil that was in his mind the best interest of Wakanda. T'Challa discovers that it's time for change, and who do you really want to be to the world? How do you want the world to see Wakanda, and is it worth the price? And I'll be curious to see how Wakanda responds to how this movie ends with him opening up Wakanda and Wakanda becoming part of the world conversation.
Well, everybody's been dusted.
I was going to say, T'Challa's dust now, so I guess there's no more Black Panther movies.
No, they'll just, with a dustpan, just
They'll reform them.
sweep them up.
Shuri
Just sprinkle
can do
some
something.
vibranium on that. That fixes fucking everything.
No.
But
Shuri's dusted too, Brian. We saw the Endgame trailer.
Oh.
She's gone.
They don't know that, though.
She's missing.
Wait, she's missing in the
Endgame trailer. She shows up on the screen as one of the individuals missing.
sad.
Oh.
But they thought that about Ant-Man too. But he's there in the trailer.
Well, I guess
this
maybe
live?
Thanos was right. Like, let's solve the world's problems
Put
by
that
chopping
on
the
a
number of
t-shirt.
people in half.
Maybe Thanos was right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Both Eric Killmonger had a point and Thanos had a point.
Two best villains. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yep. I had brilliant points to make, but now I feel derailed. So,
I'm sorry.
but anyway, that was my number 7.
All right.
I'm sure the movie's going to come back at some point.
If you want to hear me talk good, just rewind and you can listen to me talk about Fred Rogers a little more.
All right, Brad, your number 7.
My number 7 is Mandy, the Nicolas Cage Andrea Riseborough, Linus Roche starring film from director Panos Cosmatos. I love Cosmatos as a filmmaker. I think he makes incredibly beautiful mood pieces, and you may not want to be linked to that mood at any particular time, but when you're feeling angry and you need a cathartic release, Mandy provides. And Nicolas Cage is a great avatar for him. And, you know, speaking of the Marvel Universe, I think it's fascinating that in 2018 we had Nicolas Cage talking about Galactus at the start of this film as being his favorite planet. And you know what? Dick Cheney's the Vice movie, Galactus appears on screen in that. So this 20th Century Fox Disney deal must be happening.
Are they dropping hints?
Yeah, Galactus is coming.
How does Galactus come into Vice?
He literally shows up on screen in Vice. That's all I'll say.
Shut the front door.
You need to watch Vice to see some classic Jack Kirby Galactus references. All right. But yeah. So for Galactus alone, I'm going to give it to Mandy.
All right.
I don't know. Like, all joking aside, I think this movie is not about its revenge plot. It's about its revenge emotion and what it feels like to have somebody close to you ripped away from you, whether that's by, you know, hell-raising demonic bikers or cancer or old age or what have you. And from that point forward, Nicolas Cage is just expressing that pain that we all feel. So yeah, Mandy.
All right, Billy, you're number 7.
So my number 7 is also Black Panther.
Oh,
nice.
For all the reasons that Lisa said. I think the thing that I would like to focus on is Michael B. Jordan's performance as Killmonger. I think that the character that he was given is amazing, is deeply nuanced, and has a lot of really relatable perspectives to say. I think Killmonger is the best villain in the entire MCU, and I don't even think that it's close. I think that Killmonger is the best because he's, I think, a person who has a point. I don't go in for the idea of destruction as a way to fix problems of the past. Like, just philosophically, I'm on different ends of the spectrum there.
Good to know.
So yeah, not a big fan of violence
You're not
or
gonna
destruction.
snap us.
No, I would not. I don't think that's a way to solve anything. I don't think breaking things fixes anything. And I think that's where, you know, Killmonger and I sort of would part ways. But his observations about the way that the world works and Wakanda's relationship with the world and the choices that they've made through the course of it, I don't think are just fueled by disdain or frustration or the fact that his father paid the price for that particular perspective. I think that they're right, and I think that they're correct observations. And I think that the MCU giving space to Ryan Coogler to wrestle with that theme for a feature-length film not only gives us a richer MCU, but gives us something that I think is worth chewing on a long time after the end credits roll on Black Panther. But I guess that's a little bit of what Lisa was talking about. So I give you a chance, Lisa, if you want to come back in to
say some more things.
Yeah.
I love the music. The soundtrack is absolutely amazing.
The soundtrack is the first time I've bought a soundtrack for a movie before seeing it. I think in fucking 20 years or something. I just don't do that.
Yeah.
And that soundtrack, I was playing nonstop in my commute. It is so good.
Oh, any other thoughts, Lisa?
More thoughts. I love Shuri. I think she's
Of
an
course.
amazing character. What an amazing
Yes.
addition to the MCU. This idea that she's like a young technological genius.
The smartest in the MCU? Smartest person in the MCU?
For Shuri.
She is.
You're having fun with names.
I see what you did there.
I'm sorry.
What else?
What else?
Okoye.
I love Okoye.
Mhm.
I like to see her throw her wig.
Yes.
That's amazing. I think the fight choreography is amazing and inventive.
M'Baku.
Yeah. Got a crush on that guy.
That dude. I mean,
Mr.
I know
Winston
that
Duke.
we're not allowed to talk about the trailer for Us,
Are we
but
not?
god damn, I am so excited to see that guy and more things. Holy shit,
looks-
that's gonna be so good.
I just think he's adorable.
Is it Billy?
All right, I think that's yeah.
All right. Is it Lisa?
Yep.
Okay. My number 7 is directed by Sebastian Gutierrez, and it is a film I knew nothing about until Brad's recommendation, and it is
welcome.
Elizabeth Harvest. Stars Abby Lee, Syrian Hines from Game of Thrones, Abby Lee from Mad Max Fury Road, and also Neon Demon, and also Carla Gugino.
Yeah.
I
She's
don't.
my M'Baku, Lisa.
Oh yeah.
She is.
I don't want to spoil this film because I would not want to rob the viewers who have not seen it of the experience that I had. It wasn't spoiled for me. But I will say Abby Lee plays a newlywed to Syrian Hines, and Carla Gugino is sort of his, I guess, assistant. And the movie opens with her after the wedding. She arrives with her husband at their new forever home, where she makes some discoveries, life-changing discoveries about herself and her husband. That's all I'll say. What else I'll say? But I'll talk about the Sebastian Gutierrez shoots the hell out of this film, not only cinematography-wise, but also directing-wise. Abby Lee has not had a lot of acting experience, but I do see that she has worked with, at this point, 3 incredible directors. One, firstly, George Miller, Nicholas Winding Refn with Neon Demon, and Mr. Gutierrez with this film. And what they're able to do, work with her to pull out some compelling performances. This one, by far, her best. She has the most to do. She's the lead of the film. And for someone with as little acting experience as her, but to be as compelling and to carry this movie, I found tremendously gratifying as a fan of hers from Fury Road. Man, this movie took so many twists and turns that I was not expecting, all the while looking tremendously beautiful. I mean, the lighting, the shot composition, the way that he edits, he uses De Palma's
split
screen to tremendous effect. It's so good, to the point where, like, when this movie was over with, was I tweeting you or was I texting you, Brad, while I was watching this? Because it was knocking me on my ass, like, back to back to back. And then when it ended, it's the thing to talk about with the festival is when you go into a movie knowing nothing of it and come away completely swept off your feet. Excuse me. And that was my experience with Elizabeth Harvest. And it's one of the things that, next week we'll be recording our most anticipated films of 2019. But the thing I love the most is, while my list will have movies that you probably have already heard about or will be hearing about soon, these are the movies that I love, the movies that I don't know of to even put on my list to anticipate that come out and they end up being on my top 10. So, yeah, I'm going to have Godzilla on there. Yeah, we'll be talking about Endgame and stuff like that. But these gems, these hidden gems, are the ones that I cherish. I truly cherished. And so again, thank you, Brad, for this film.
You're welcome.
I need this on Blu-ray or 4K. And
I should thank Faye at Psycho Cinema at the Alamo Winchester.
Thank you, Faye. I love you, but you already knew that. I wish I could have saw this shit on the big screen.
It was pretty great.
Goodness. Yeah. So, all right. Moving on. We're gonna go with David Lawson. That dude. What up, Dave? His favorite film, he says, is Blind Spotting, and it wasn't even really that close. His first response after seeing that film was, "This is why art is important." And that's a running theme of our conversation about cinema this year. the angry cinema, or even also the non-angry cinema. It has been important, at least the very least, for this dork culture in this room, as a counterpoint to all the negativity. But with what has been going on with our people or people in general, and them finding a way to use, whether it be social media as a platform for their voice to be heard, or in this case, cinema, to have their voice heard. We've had tremendous output from a wide variety of voices this year that, while in different expressions, have all been saying the same thing. And at the end of the day, that same thing is, we deserve to be heard. And as far as Blind Spotting goes, I hear you loud and clear. So that's a good pick, Dave, because it's a good film. All right, B, this is it, right? This is our, for the first half, number 6.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
What do you got?
All right, so for number 6 is mid-90s.
Ah, yeah.
Love this film. Absolutely love this film. Seen it twice. Saw it at...
was that at Fantastic Fest? I hear that was a popular place to be.
You said it,
year.
Billy. Sorry, Billy. Sorry.
Whoops.
Yeah. But yeah, saw it twice. And love this movie. What I like about this movie is how personal this film is, and how much, for me, I identify with the family dynamic. Family dynamic is 2 siblings with a single mother, which is the same family dynamic that I have, which me having an older brother and my mother being a single mother. And the character of Stevie, played brilliantly by Sonny Soljic, who is a 13-year-old impressionable kid, and at that age, he is dealing with a lot of turmoil in his family household.
His brother's a dick.
Yeah, with his brother, and so he finds
Hey, Max, sorry.
he finds comfort in these skateboard kids around the neighborhood. And it's just really kind of just this straightforward coming of age story, but just the way Jonah Hill he brings a truthfulness and an authenticity to these characters. And one aspect of that is by casting these skateboarders who were not actors in the film, and he's able to pull these really genuine and sincere performances from these skateboarders. To really pull you in as an audience member and connect with these characters in such a real way that I just found to be really endearing. His choice of music to really kind of bring that nostalgia from the 90s, but yet to use the music not just as nostalgia, but as something to just kind of identify for that feeling that you have growing up in that era. And he spoke about that when he spoke with Leonard Maltin during his podcast in Austin, Texas, before we actually saw the film. But yeah, I thought great performances by Lucas Hedges and Catherine Waterston. I thought they gave great performances, just creating that family dynamic. I mean, I think Lucas Hedges' character as of Ian, and seeing what he's going through growing up in this family, I mean, that's a story in and of itself that I think we could see on screen, just to see what his issues and his pain and suffering is growing up in this household as well. But yeah, I just found this movie just really, really endearing, and it just really hit me. The last thing I'll say is, like, with the dynamics between those characters, the skateboarders, the end of that film is it's just so great for me because of the character of Fourth Grade. He kind of comes off as really like within that group of friends. He comes off a bit. They're a bit dismissive towards him, with him telling them about his dreams as far as like being a filmmaker and everything like that. And he's recording them throughout. And then when we finally get to see what he's put together at the end of this film, it's just really. It's just really endearing. It works really well, and I just love this film. I absolutely love what Jonah Hill was able to do with his another directorial debut. Jonah Hill, yeah, they were killing it this year,
and so like clearly made by a film fan.
Absolutely, Absolutely. And hearing Jonah Hill talk, I mean, I never would have thought he was a cinephile in the way that he is. And this dude knows his films. And yeah, he put it all into this first directorial debut. And to me, he knocked it out the park.
Did you have a moment with your older sibling? Because I can remember like that transition of like they have a scene in mid-90s where he's trying to pick a gift for his brother. So he sneaks into his brother's room and he looks at all of the CDs and he's writing things down. And then like he meets those skateboard kids and he goes like, I no longer want to be my older sibling. I want to be my own person, and my own person is this. Because I had a very similar transition where like my sister was super into musicals and super into Stephen Sondheim musicals. And so that is all I listened to from probably 4th to 6th grade. And then I met Laura Knockenhauer's older sister, Elizabeth, and she was into the Beatles and 60s music. And then I said, no, actually, I think I want to be Elizabeth. And then I switched. Like, do you have something with your older sibling where you're like, did you ever want to be your older sibling and then have a switch like that?
Nothing that I can recall having that feeling, wanting to be like my brother. But I did have those moments because my brother was the same way Ian was in this movie, where he'd be like, don't ever go in my room. And I would literally, when he wasn't home, I would literally go, because he would have everything meticulous in his room, because my brother's kind of OCD. And he would know, like, he would come home either from school. He's like, you've been in my room. He's like, I could tell because something was moved half an inch. So, like, when Stevie would go, like, that opening scene where he opened the door and would go into his brother's room and play with the weights and look at everything, like, I would do that. I would do it just to tick my brother off because he would tell me not to go in there. Like, man, I'm going to your room anyway. And so, yeah, this movie just really connected with me personally because it literally felt like my own family. To a degree, not the whole thing, but I could definitely identify with a lot of those different things. But never had that moment where I had a transition that took me away from not wanting to be what he was per se. But I definitely had like those moments. Yeah.
I need to know more of Brian's story. We should do a Brian interview. I want to get to the bottom of who you are as a person.
My life is not that interesting, believe me.
Damn.
Oh man.
All right.
Oh, it'll be a quick interview then, so that's good.
Yeah.
Our episodes tend to be long.
At least your number 6.
My number 6 is a film that's already come up in somebody else's top 10, and it is Thunder Road.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. I also loved this movie a lot. I was trying to think about, because Brad was talking about how Jim Cummings finds this beautiful balance between what's funny and what is so sincere.
It's not so much a balance as like a rubber band effect. Like he's bouncing back and forth.
And where I think maybe the heart comes from, or where it comes from for me, is the fact that Jim Cummings' character, Officer Jim Arnaud, is trying so hard, and he had, I think, a particular upbringing that told him, if you're a policeman, you're a good person. You're choosing a path that is righteous, and getting married and having a child is a beautiful thing to do, and maintaining that nuclear family, and you should love your mother and your mother should love you back. And these are all areas in his life that he ended up just a failure. Like he was not a very good cop, even by cop standards. And he was not a good father. He ended up getting a divorce, which can feel like a failure. And he, and he's becoming estranged from his daughter, and his mother didn't see him for who he was, and he didn't feel properly loved by her. And he can't put his finger on what he's done wrong. He's a rule follower. And I think the fact that he's struggling with that, and we all have our limitations of perspective, and he's just dealing with the idea of, I was told to live my life a particular way, and if I lived it this particular way, things would turn out all right, but they're not turning out all right. And I think that this character, Jim Arnaud, is not necessarily making the mistakes that we would make, or does not have the limitations that we have, but we know what it is to learn a harsh reality about yourself and identify the things in yourself that you need to change, despite, you know, whatever brought you to the person that you are in that time. You know, it's just another movie about personal growth and how we could all afford to do a little bit better. And I love the fact that, particularly with his daughter, the opportunity to turn the ship around has not passed, and he's never going to stop trying to raise his daughter right. And I think that by the end of this movie, he really is a changed and better person. And the daughter, they're really going to be helping each other grow up, and the person they become will be this collaborative effort that's been brought together by love and sacrifice and this common loss. So yeah, I think it's the fact that, like, and we got to have Jim Cummings on our podcast, and I wasn't there for the interview, but I got to meet him the day before. And the fact that, like, you look at Jim Cummings, like, without the mustache, and he looks like a freaking youth pastor. Like, it's like, I don't know, he just looks so young, and he's super optimistic about his career, which he should be. He's made an amazing movie, but I don't know. I like,
he's not his officer.
Yeah, the insight that he has into this character is tremendously sophisticated, and it's kind of unfair. What a young guy this guy is. Anyway, Jim Cummings, you know how to make a film.
All right, Brad, your number 6.
So I'm closing out this episode by being the first one to bring up, because I'm sure this movie is going to show up again in part 2. Boots Riley, Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is amazing. And it's one of the great revelations cinematically that I've had this year. The way Boots uses absurdism and magical realism to cut to the very painful truths around us is exhilarating. And it can be quite funny, but behind every laugh is this sharp blade that jabs right into your soul and makes you feel pretty darn bad. And to Lisa's point about discovering these people, these new filmmakers, you watch Sorry to Bother You and you're shocked by that movie, and suddenly you want to know everything about the person who made it. So you start going down that rabbit hole of interviews and archival footage. You start listening to The Coup, and you discover this philosophy that Boots Riley had, where he's not interested in changing minds. He doesn't believe that Sorry to Bother You, can land at the Marrier's house, my in-laws, and radically change their points of view on capitalism. But he does believe that Sorry to Bother You can be passed to a friend, and then that movie can be passed to a friend, and suddenly you have this army of people who go, we can change, we can get together, and we can change the world we want it to the way we want it to be. Mm-hmm. That art is powerful. That art is there to make a statement. And, people who dismiss it as like, well, it's just stupid. It's just silly. It's dumb. It's make-believe. It's hodgepodge, crazy silliness. Well, that's because, as Boots would say, the world is a hodgepodge of silly, crazy, stupid, absurd things. And the only reason why his movie is so kooky is because the planet we live on is equally so.
Yes,
This is the movie on my list that I want to give to the most people. Like, I want Sorry to Bother You to be Black Panther. I love Black Panther. Oh my God, do I love Black Panther. But I want Sorry to Bother You to have Black Panther's dollars.
Yeah.
So,
In defense of my parents, I'm pretty sure that they'd be against the kind of indentured servitude / slavery situation of Worry Free. I'm pretty sure. I haven't asked them.
I thought you were going to say you're pretty sure they already saw it. I was like, yes.
Oh, no. They're not going to get to see this
I
thing.
picked Lisa's in-laws because that's the family I saw last. I could easily have picked my parents as well.
Oh, my goodness. Greg Gullickson watching Sorry to Bother You.
He would not respond well to it.
His favorite movie is French Kiss.
Oh.
Yeah.
Aw.
And when I told
He's a
him
sweetie.
how much I enjoyed Won't You Be My Neighbor, he's like, Fred Rogers is saccharine.
Oh. All right.
You don't know how hilarious that is without meeting Greg Gullickson, because he is literally the most saccharine dude ever.
Which is what I told him, and he took great offense to that.
He also thinks he's not a picky eater. He is an extraordinarily picky eater, and he will not admit it. He thinks because he eats pad thai, he's got this world palate. I'm sorry, friend. I'm sorry.
My dad raised me right, though.
Can we get some pad thai?
Shrimp pad thai?
So good right now.
Anyway, Sorry to Bother You. It's an amazing movie. Go see it if you haven't seen it.
All right, Billy, your number 6.
So my number 6 is going to be Avengers, Infinity War. I mean, for all the reasons that have been discussed, especially Darren Thor's character arc, for sure. But I think the thing that stands out to me this year, my girls all born after Iron Man, so my oldest is 9. And she'll be 10 next year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Can you imagine never existing without the MCU? That's such a beautiful future we're promising to Billy's children.
But that's their experience with it. And they've been watching the Marvel movies
Since day one. Right out.
Actually, yeah, the middle child has been watching Marvel movies since day one. Because when my wife was pregnant with our second kid, Harper, we decided to do a run through of all of the Marvel movies, not the MCU movies, but all Marvel movies, in preparation for Winter Soldier, I guess, was right around that time. And so, yeah, Harper's first movie that she ever watched was she was like fucking 3 weeks old and sat through Blade.
Yeah.
So, that's good parenting. Okay?
Wide-eyed.
I think we turned her away from the screen, so she slept through it.
But did she get to hear some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill?
Yeah, actually, no, yeah, 100% she did. Which, I think that's a good life lesson to learn at any age. And we brought her to see Winter Soldier during one of the family days at the Alamo.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of, but I mean, I say that like it's a toss aside, but the truth is that my wife and I have been very invested in the Marvel movies. We really enjoyed watching them. And that's something that we passed on to our kids and shared with them. And, for me as a comic book fan, the Infinity War is really thrown back to the first time that I read a Wizard magazine, and they were like, look at these great comic book movies that are going to come out just down the road, right?
Bob Hoskins is Wolverine.
It's going to be amazing. But, there was great promise when we were kids, I think, as to what the future of comic book movies would be. And, I think that there are a lot of interesting things going on in comic book movies, and I don't want to just put that to the MCU, but I do think that they've done something very special, and that very particularly Infinity War is the realization of, I think, what they've really been trying to do for the last 10 years. And it's amazing. And it's been something that I've been able to share with my kids and share that passion for comics with them and comic book movies. And, I got to see Infinity War this year. I brought Claire to see it with my wife for just the first time viewing because I knew that she would go in for it. I was concerned that the younger kids would have an issue because, I mean, look, Infinity War, you know how this movie's going to end before you go. He's going to snap his fingers. Like, shit is not going to work out right. Like, there's a major cliffhanger there.
Spider-Man does.
Yeah, and honestly, it's weird because even at one showing that I attended, there was a person just down the road from me who had drank too much, and when Spider-Man died, boy, she was stomping her foot and howling with tears at the dissolution of Spider-Man into dust, and it was really annoying. But she was very emotive about it, so I said, good on her, right? You got to feel what you feel. But no, so we get to go see this with Claire, and we come out of the theater, and it's a big event, and there are people there, and like there was somebody promoting their comic book shop or something like that, and they were doing quizzes on like trivia questions for the MCU.
Was that the Alamo?
Yeah, it was at the Alamo.
They were promoting Comic Logic in Ashburn.
There you go. And they had a bunch of like giveaways, like they had challenge coins for Infinity War and all that sort of stuff. And if you got the question right, they'd give you a choice. And
I got the question right.
Did you? Very good. So also did Claire. Yeah. So like they, I don't step up to do that stuff because shit, if I'm wrong, I'll die in shame and I can't handle it. And it's just too much stress for my anxiety to handle being put on the spot like that.
You should try knowing everything, Billy, like me.
No, I can't. I could not. I could not presume to even pretend to know everything. Oh my God, I would die. But Claire's the opposite of me for that, man. She's fearless. And, she saw that they were doing trivia questions. She was like, get out of the way, people. I'm coming to the front of the line. Throw me your trivia questions. And they asked her, what eye does Nick Fury wear his patch on?
Right.
Left.
I think he wears it over both.
That would have been my answer.
Just crisscrossed.
Yeah? Do you feel solid about that?
No, I don't.
Do we have a picture? Because I don't know. I don't know the answer.
How do we not have a pop figure of Nick Fury at arm's length?
It's not in this corner of the Dark Cave.
Oh.
Wait, is it? No, he's not patched over there. I can't see from there.
It's the left.
Is
That's
it?
the left.
Yeah. But so
I was right.
I don't know the answer when they ask the trivia question, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, Claire's not going to go know the answer. She's going to be upset. I'm falling apart emotionally as a parent. And Claire just is like, all right, here, so then you go to this scene in the movie, and he's doing this thing, and he's standing like this. And then he does this thing, and then you see his patch on this particular eye. So his eye is this that's covered by the patch. And she talks to her whole answer, and the dude's like, yeah, spot on. That's exactly the right answer.
That's a proud moment.
And I was just really impressed, to be taken by surprise at just her confidence in dealing with situations like that. And that's one of my favorite experiences at the movie this year. And I don't think I would have had that, if it weren't for Infinity War.
I'm holding a copy of Marvel Universe, the Visual Dictionary, and it is indeed the left.
Yeah. So there you go. But she knew that. She didn't even have to look it. And Brad, who knows everything, who has everything, pulled out his book on the subject and had the answer in seconds.
I've learned an important lesson, Billy. Thank you.
But so that's my number 6.
All right, great pick. For my number 6, before we close the first half out, is it's a film that has already been talked about, so I won't go into depth. It has not only been talked about on this episode, but in previous episodes ad nauseum, and it is Ari Aster's Hereditary. Yeah. The one true horror movie on my list. This movie, I had Happy Death Day on my list, but another movie bumped it off, and I felt okay because I wanted to represent.
Death Day this year?
No, it wasn't. Okay, maybe that's why I was bumped off.
Wait,
then.
was it not? I thought it was this year.
It was last year.
That's right. It was February last year, right?
I thought it was February of this year.
No, it was February of last year, guys.
Okay.
Damn.
So anyway,
actually, it was October of last year.
Oh, so
October
close.
is like the February of last year, isn't it, guys?
It kind of is.
Yeah. Anyway, Hereditary is my number 6 for all the reasons that it was mentioned earlier, and for all the reasons that I've mentioned it on the podcast previously. This is another movie that has stayed with me, and I've only seen it once. And it is one of the scariest movies of recent memory for me. I'm not scared easily in horror movies. I don't find jump scares interesting. They don't stick with me. It may be fun in that moment, but it is not something that I go back to or find it particularly effective. When I watch a horror film, my idea of horror, I don't necessarily associate gore or monsters or particular kills with horror. For me, the horror that I respond to is horror that I can relate to. I can't relate to a werewolf. I can't relate to a creature or a monster, but I can relate to the horror of real life situations, the horror of the loss of a family member, the horror of making a tremendously grave error, the horror of not having the right answer to comfort your family member when they're going through something unfathomably difficult. All those things are in this film, and along with some supernatural shit that I can't relate to, but the people who are at the middle of this supernatural craziness are characters that I can relate to, because the first half of that movie is spent establishing them and building them up through these real life tragedies and these real life situations, so that when they go through this crazy shit, while I can't really relate to the crazy shit, I can relate to the person that is being affected by it. So in turn, I am affected by it. And say what you will about the last scenes of this film, or how they may pull from other films or other classics, movies that are considered classics. But I will say the way that they're used in this film, coupled with everything else, a tremendous performance from Toni Collette and everyone else in the cast, and everything that leads up to those last crazy moments, for me, in my opinion, helped solidify this film as a new classic already. And people can say, oh, that's hyperbole or whatever, but I know how I feel about this movie. And I don't mean in the sense, well, I mean physically feel about this movie. This movie, watching it, this was actually the one of the opening nights at the Alamo Woodbridge. So I did a double feature there, and this is one of the movies that I saw. And I can remember my physical and emotional response to the film. More than the graphic nature of the images in the latter part of the film, the thing that sticks out to me the most is Toni Collette's guttural screams of pain when she is witness to some tragedy. That shit is real. I've heard people scream like that in real life. I've seen people respond to things like that in real life. So I know that is real and it's tangible. And so for me, I don't know. I found that movie and those characters and those situations to be extremely upsetting and moving. And yeah, that's what I want out of my horror films. I haven't watched the trailer for Us yet, but I want Jordan Peele to give me another film with horror that I can relate to, that horror that I've seen in the flesh in real life, that I've experienced maybe. And that's what Hereditary does. It gives me a horror that I can place in the real world to some extent, for the most part. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's streaming right now on Amazon, so check it out. Yeah, that's our 10 through 6, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So you have made it through the first half of our Dorkies.
Who needs to pee?
Oh,
I do.
Yep.
So does Billy.
One at a time. One at a time. All right, we're gonna take turns. So, ladies and gentlemen,
I brought my Depends, by the way. So
all right.
Hold on, here we go.
Oh man.
Oh, man.
So wow. Yeah, those were not Depends.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can hit us up on social media at ItModcast and let us know what your 10 through 6 are.
Do you know why they're called Depends?
You can follow that guy at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Lisa is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, at Big Dork on Twitter, also at Sidewalk Siren and Big Dork on Instagram. And if you want to follow her letterbox, she's at Sidewalk Siren.
That's where you can learn what Depends, why they're called Depends.
Because people ask, well, do they work? And you say, depends.
It's Greg Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untappd. Billy Das is at WB Das on Twitter and Instagram. And I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That is going to do it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 if you want to hear our 5 through 1 and our dorkies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until part 2.
Merry New Year!
Woo!